Long ago, in a land called Ajakoro, there lived a king whose name people dared not speak. He was called Oba Rafano, but the people simply said the king, because the word itself was enough to bring fear. Oba Rafano was a wicked man. He did not rule with kindness. He ruled with fear. He took whatever he wanted: land, cows, food, even people's daughters and wives. If someone complained, his guards beat them or dragged them away. Some were never seen again. When the king walked through the village square, everyone fell on their faces in the dust. It was said that if you looked him in the eye, he might cut out your tongue. Once, Ajakoro was a happy land. People farmed, sang, and danced. But under Oba Rafano's rule, all that joy disappeared. Even the trees and rivers seemed to go silent. But no matter how powerful a king is, there are things even he cannot control. One of those things is a prophecy. There was an old priest named Orankan. He had skin like cracked wood and eyes that seemed older than the sky. Orankan gave a warning to the people, and to the king. When the king's shadow grows longer than the sun, he said, his blood will be split in two. One son will destroy. One will redeem. Oba Rafano laughed. He did not believe in such things. But then, it happened. On the 13th night of the Egana moon, both of the king's wives went into labor at the same time, at the same minute. The first was Queen Amora, his favorite. She was proud and beautiful. The second was Tenny, a quiet woman he barely noticed. Each gave birth to a baby boy. 2 sons, born under the same star. The palace was filled with whispers. Orankan came to see the babies and stood over them with a strange look in his eyes. These boys were born under the veil star, he said. One will carry the king's sins. The other will carry the people's hope. From that day, the palace was divided. The boy from Queen Amora was named Tyr. Tyr grew up tall and strong. He loved the sound of power, swords clashing, guards shouting, people crying out in fear. He laughed when his father punished people. He once burned a servant with a torch just for walking ahead of him. He was cruel. He was his father's son. And the king loved him for it. The second boy, son of Tenny, was named Olealu. Olealu was different. He liked to read. He asked questions. He sat with servants and helped in the kitchen. He fed horses himself. He even helped the palace healer care for the sick. He asked dangerous questions. Why do people fear us? Why do we beat farmers who bring harvest late? Why does the king take other men's wives? The king didn't like those questions. He ignored Olealu and sent Tenny to live in a far part of the palace, away from everyone. But the people began to talk. In the market. At the riverside. Late at night by firelight. They said Olealu had a kind heart. That he was the one who should be king. Tyr heard these whispers, and he grew angry. One year, during the festival of ashes, the people were forced to dance in chains for the king's amusement. That night, Orankan the priest appeared again, barefoot and covered in palm ash. He looked the king in the eye and said, "Your crown is cursed. Your bloodline is split. One son will rise from the ashes of your kingdom. The other will drag you into the grave." The king shouted in rage. He had Orankan whipped and thrown out of Ajakoro. But curses don't wait for permission. Soon after, a plague began. It started in the western farmlands. People fell sick. Children coughed up black bile. Pregnant women lost their babies in the night. Rivers turned muddy. Crops died before harvest. The royal healer said it was a punishment from the gods. From the forest, Orankan sent a message to Olealu. The land is rejecting your father. One of you must choose. Inside the palace, things grew worse. The king began executing his own advisors for small mistakes. He accused Teni, Olealu's mother, of poisoning his food. He threw her in a dark cell and left her there. Tyr saw his chance. "Father," he said, "let me lead the royal guards. I will make the people fear us again." And the king said yes. Tyr became even more brutal. He ordered public beatings. He burned homes. Anyone caught saying Olealu's name was branded a traitor. People ran into the forest to hide. Some found Orankan. Some found Olealu. They begged him, "We do not ask for blood. We ask for a king who sees us as human." Olealu didn't want to be king. He didn't want war. But every night, he dreamed of fire. He dreamed of Tyr on the throne, laughing as everything burned. Then, the worst thing happened. Teni died. In that cold, dark prison cell, she starved. She was forgotten by the king who once made her mother. Olealu's heart broke. That night, he walked into the palace. He knelt before his father, not as a son, but as a judge. "Your time is over," he said. "The land rejects you. Step down. Spare yourself." The king looked at him and laughed. "You are no son of mine," he said. "You are weak." Then he called for the guards. But no guards came. They had already chosen. The people rose up. The palace gates were opened. Tyr fought like a demon. He killed 12 rebels before he was caught. The king tried to run into the tunnels beneath the palace, but he was found. The people screamed for his death. But Olealu raised his hand. "No. Let him live," he said. "Let him watch what justice looks like." He took the king's golden crown and threw it into the fire. "From today," he said, "Ajakoro will not be ruled by fear. It will be ruled by truth." Tyr was exiled, banished from the kingdom forever. Oba Rafano was locked away in the same prison cell where Teni had died. And Olealu became king. But not like his father. He didn't rule alone. He created a council of elders, men and women from all tribes and villages. He opened the palace gates. He gave land back to farmers. He helped the sick and poor. Under his rule, the rivers flowed again. The crops returned. Ajakoro bloomed. But sometimes, late at night, Olealu would walk the halls of the palace alone and ask himself, "If I had been born first, would I have become like him?" Because even the kindest king still carries the shadow of his father.